and may the king be righteous. Your connotation is that the king being righteous was always to do with...
Now these four things are interlinked. First we say, this kind of invocation and invitation for the gods. So if every morning, I think a lot of these radio stations say this. This is what we want. First is, Devo Vasatu Kalena means, let gods give us rain, or let clouds give us rain. The word Devo in Pali has two meanings. It can mean God, like Deviyo Vino, let gods give us rain, or it could mean let clouds give us rain. You know, rain is in the clouds anyway. Rain, so Devo give us rain so that our crops will be bountiful, because crops need water. Then we say, with that people become happy. Pitu Bhavatu Lokocha, then the people become, and for all that to happen, we want the king to be righteous. Raja Bhavatu Dhammiko. Let the king be righteous. And we also have a link. We also have a connection. If the king is righteous, God will give rain in due season. If there if rains don't come in the right time, the cause is the king is not all that righteous. So there's a very important link between the two.
You're going to, you have told me you're going to talk about the Dasaraja Dharma later. We're going to come to that. But on this whole this books as it expounds, you've actually gone to history as well, and you've actually described the three political entities of the time, or the Tun Singhale that you speak of. You want to elaborate a little bit?
Well, at that time, in the early period, the kingdom was divided into two basic segments called Rata. So you get the Raja Rata, also called Pihiti Rata, then the Ruhunu Rata, and the Maya Rata. So there are three important divisions of the kingdom. Then, of course, in addition to we had the Malay Rata also up in the mountains. Malay means mountain, by the way. So we had it's more or less part of the Maya Rata. So we were there. We had the three.
And then you also say very, very funnily that, well, not finally, but it's historical, that Raja Rata was once again divided into four segments: the Uttara Desha, the Dakina Desha, the Pachina and Pachina.
Yes, because for administrative purposes.
Right.
Within that, because there were Yuva Rajas looking after certain areas. So this is an old division.
Right.
Then, of course, later we had other divisions like Corales, you know, like that.
Right. Then, sir, now coming to the interesting part is how history can teach us a lot for our future. This is once again, you know that you said you watched a few Checkmate programs. The ethos of Checkmate is to encourage younger Sri Lanka, or future Sri Lanka, to build that better country, to build that Sri Lanka of the pristine glory that it once was. Perhaps it will be very soon. You speak of, first you speak of the Dasa Paramita that was followed by a king which the people believed to be a Bodhisattva king. Would you like to elaborate a little?
Yes, now see, our kings had two views of their ways. One is they thought they were Bodhisattvas. Bodhisattva is an aspirant of the Buddha. Someday he's going to be a Buddha. So when he aspires to be a Buddha, he's called a Bodhisattva. Buddha in the making. So our kings always thought that he was among the Bodhisattvas. Sometimes the king himself refers to himself as Bodhisattva Vijayabahu, something like that. So he himself calls him Bodhisattva. So therefore, a Bodhisattva has to kind of perform 10 ideals of perfections called Dasha Paramita, like Dana, Shila, Kanti and all that. At the same time, he also thought he was to be a righteous king. He had another 10 called Dasha Paramita, not Dasha Paramita, Dasa Raja Dharma.
Yes. You refer to that also.
Yes. That's some of them are common, like Dana, then Shila and Kanti are common to both. Then there are other, the other 7 are different.
There is liberality. There is straightness or honesty. Then Madhava or gentleness, self-restraint. Now these
forbearance.
So these are the ideal 10 temperaments or attributes that they believed that an ideal ruler should have.
For good governance.
For good governance. For good governance. And then there is ahimsa, no violence,
No, non-violence.
or
Yes.
khanti, like you said,
Kanti means forbearance, tolerance.
tolerance.
Yes.
And then avirodhan, non-obstruction or agreeability.
Yes, right.
Attend or listen to advice.
Listen to people. You see. So ultimately, if you get all the 10, it means all for the people. You give up luxuries, you give up luxuries in a nekama like that. The entire 10 ultimately says you are working not for yourself but for the people.
So
for the benefit of the
yes,
people.
That's right. And you try to explain that very nicely, because you say that the king had two absolute purposes, both to do with the people.
Yes.
One was loka, or for material
That's right.
gain of the people, and the other was the spiritual uplift.
Sasana.
You want to elaborate?
Yes, loka means the world, that means the material world, material development, economic and agricultural development. So for that, that's one interest. The people, the economic condition of the people must be improved. So he built reservoirs, irrigation systems, so that water is there, so that they will have a bountiful crop. That's one need of the people. The other is the spiritual need, called the sasana. So that once they're satisfied with food, what do they do with their lives? Then there has to be kind of spiritual upliftment. So the development in the sense of material economic development is not sufficient. It should lead to another kind of development, which is the development of the mind or the spirit. So that's called loka and sasana. So therefore, to get the water and the agriculture, he built the wells or the reservoirs, and for spiritual upliftment, they built the stupas. So these two became the Vava and the Dagaba.
Vavai
Dagabai කියන සංකල්පය ආවේ ඔන්න ඔය දෙකටයි. ලෝ සසුන් බබලවන්ට. ලෝ සසුන් කියන්නේ ලෝක සාසන කියන දෙකටයි.
Then say you also you make mention of how some kings, or during some times, this concept, it's once again, sir, this is linked to our general conversation on Checkmate, which is to do with Sri Lanka and its present and its future. Now, you at certain times say that some of the kings actually changed their religions from what they were to embrace Buddhism as a means of winning the hearts of the majority Buddhist Sinhala people. Now, in this, there is also now subsequently there are Sinhalese who are Christians. Then you had a very nice propounding of a thought of a Sinhala Muslim, which we will discuss in a minute, of the Maldivian people. At times, even Christians, we know, sometimes don't identify themselves as Sinhalese for whatever reason, we do not know. But even then, there was this phenomena, that, or the concept that one must change the religion or become a Buddhist to attract the masses. Is that necessarily because there would have been this concept that that it is only a Buddhist that is a Sinhalese, or how do you discuss this social phenomena as a Sinhalese that Christians either purposely or by exclusion sometimes are not included in the Sinhala culture and the race? How do we distinguish?
Well, in the case of the kings, it was not very difficult. Most of the kings who became Buddhists were Hindus. For a Hindu king to become a Buddhist is not difficult, because Buddha is part of the Hindu kind of mythology and also philosophy. Buddha is part of one of the 10 incarnations of Vishnu. So he is already there. So then, in fact, no need for a Hindu to become a Buddhist, because Buddha is within Hinduism. So there. Of course, the others have a little problem, because because Hindus and Buddhists share the same world belief. They believe the same gods, that there are more gods than one. Whereas when it comes to Islam and Christianity, they believe only in a single God, one omnipresent God. Therefore, although they are Sinhalese, their world of belief differs from us. So we have more with the Hindus than with the Sinhala Christians.
But sir, how do we transcend this? This is my problem. In building a new culture, in building a new future as Sri Lankans, how do we keep the religion part aside and identify ourselves as Sinhalese?
In the modern world, what we can do is, religion is a personal belief. I believe what I like. I believe that there are
That's my faith.
That's my faith. That's a very personal matter. But for the development of the country, we have to go beyond that. We have to surpass that personal belief. Whether there's one God or many gods, that doesn't matter. But the people have to be served. So I think we shouldn't try to make that personal conviction very strong.
Part of your nationality.
We are first Sri Lankans. We are first Sri Lankans, then Sinhalese, then Sinhala Buddhists, like that.
Would you believe that Malaysia has, in that sense, gone far? Because they first say you're a Malaysian.
Right.
I mean, there are the Malaysian Chinese or the Malaysian Indians or whatever, but you're Malaysian. So this whole advent of trying to bring your religion as a means of identification of your race.
Personally, you can have your own beliefs. There's no problem. As two individuals, you and I can have our own personal convictions for personal reasons. You have your reason, I have my reason. We don't have to agree. But that should not make us divide the two of us. That's a matter of belief. But together we have to build a Sri Lanka.
So then a quick word, if you could, of what you were discussing earlier, of this wonderful concept that I believe some time back we have heard the same phenomena coming from the late Mr. Ashraf, who at one time propounded this theory, saying that there are Christians in Sri Lanka who are Sinhala Christians. There are Buddhists in Sri Lanka who are Sinhala Buddhists. Similarly, those of us, and he identified himself with, those of us who have become part of Sri Lanka as Muslims must either be Islam Sinhalese or Sinhala Islamists. And you had a similar notion earlier when you were discussing Maldives and the Muslim chain. You want to elaborate a little bit?
Well, now Maldivians, that's the only country in the world which is 100% Islamic. Unlike, even in the countries in the Middle East have more Muslims, and there are others, Christians. But Maldives is the only country in the world which is 100% Muslim. Islam, obviously Muslim. But the people are ethnically they are Sinhalese. So before the 5th century, there were migrations from Sri Lanka to the Maldives. So Sinhala Buddhists went there and established themselves there. So at the beginning they were Buddhists. And there are ruins of Buddhist viharas in Maldives. In the museum there are Buddha statues in the museum, all these Muslim now. Of course in the 12th century, for various other reasons, they became Islamic. So Sinhalese became follows Islam. Like when Sage Mahinda came here, we became Buddhists. We were the Sinhala Buddhists in the world. Similarly, Maldivians are the Sinhala Muslims, Sinhala Islam.
Muslim. That's a race.
Kind of more kind of thing. So I think,
see, there you go. Folks, as you can see, we are unraveling into great areas of discussion, and I'm pleased to inform you that my production team has just informed me, seeing the material in front of me, that we possibly cannot conclude it to one program, so we'll have to filter to another program of Checkmate. So this is possibly where we will leave you for tonight's program, with the hope of catching you in the privileged company of Dissanayaka, Professor J.B. Dissanayaka, on our next Checkmate program, that's next week. But before you go, a quick word of news from the production team. Whilst we thank you for being with Checkmate throughout, it is thanks to you that our production team has just found that the ratings of the program have climbed dramatically, and that we acknowledge in all humility the success of the program, which is due to your response. Our Facebook page that's appearing at the bottom of your screen now, and our email address, which is also appearing at the bottom of your screen. Our Facebook page keeps climbing by the day, and we thank particularly those viewers overseas. I have some good news for you as well. Particularly those of you who have been with from the start of Checkmate, commenting on various parts of the world, Sri Lankans spread all over the world, who have come on board with this desire to build a new Sri Lanka. We have some good news for you, but keep writing to us, keep sending your comments, because it is your comment and your participation, nothing that we do. There's a huge team behind the camera working to make Checkmate your program. It is your program, and keep writing in. It's your response that keeps Checkmate where it is. For those viewers who have been asking for repeats of our past programs, I can now tell you that we are now live and online. You can watch some of the past programs of Checkmate at the links on our Facebook page. So whenever you need to see us, I know some of you viewers overseas were asking how you can see us online. Well, here is your chance. We are now available 24/7, 365. All you have to do is go online and you can watch our past programs. For those of you in Sri Lanka, my production team informs me that if you want to purchase a particular presentation of Checkmate, a past program, you can walk into the marketing department during any Sri Lanka Rupawahini during any working time, hopefully by prior appointment, and purchase yourself a copy of our past programs. I know there's a demand for it. You've been asking for it, so there you go. These are some of the news from our production team. So whilst thanking you once again for being with us on Checkmate tonight, we will continue this dialogue with Professor J.B. Dissanayaka on our next week's Checkmate. For the moment, good night. And so, we bid you adieu for the moment, with the hope of seeing you again on a Checkmate very soon. If we do so, we leave you with these words from H.W. Longfellow. Heights by great men reached and kept were not attained by sudden flight, for they, whilst their companions slept, were toiling upwards in the night. Young Sri Lanka will see you again on a Checkmate soon. Sri Lanka is one united nation again and fast on its path to a new future. A future for which a generation of Sri Lankans have paid for dearly, some with the ultimate sacrifice. The Sri Lanka Rupawahini Corporation, being the premier television network in Sri Lanka, considered it our duty to be actively involved in the formulation of that future. Thus, we bring you Checkmate, the stories of some extraordinary people who have gone that extra mile, set out that extra hour to achieve success in very ordinary circumstances, so that you too may be encouraged to aspire for such greatness. Checkmate, a new Sri Lanka, together we can. Hello everyone and welcome to another program of Checkmate. Those of you who were with us last week would know that we are a continuation of last week's program. We are in the privileged company of Deshamanya, Professor J.B. Dissanayaka, who graduated at the University of Ceylon, Peradeniya. For those of you who were not with us last week, I just very quickly introduce him to you. Later, a Fulbright scholar to California, Berkeley. He read his master's in linguistics there. And he then obtained a PhD from the University of Colombo. He remains an emeritus professor and a leading authority on Sinhala language and of linguistics. He was a Sri Lankan ambassador to Thailand, and of course, we had the distinct pleasure of being his students when we were at the University of Colombo ourselves. We are a continuation from last week's program, so for those of you who missed, don't worry. As Checkmate always does, we do replay our past programs, and as we go on, I will also break some good news to you, where you can watch us even if you missed us. You can now watch us online, but that's to come. So last week when we left our viewers, we were discussing Sri Lanka's rulers and our culture gone, and how we build on that, on our glory of the past, in this formulation of the new future that we have now been given. I am directed, sir, to your book, Lanka, the Land of Kings. Deshamani Dr. Vernon Mendes, one of our heroes of our golden days of foreign relations, one of the very first career diplomats who made a name for himself everywhere he went and brought Sri Lanka much glory, comments like this at the end. On the whole, the nation has reason to be proud of its past rulers as the architects of a great civilization, which is rated to be amongst the finest of its kind, and for preserving and sustaining it for 2,000 years in the face at times of serious odds. This achievement is a testament to the exceptional individual caliber of our rulers, their creative abilities, as well as their abiding commitment to spiritual values and to the nation and the people. The rulers of Sri Lanka can be compared with the best to be found in other countries, and in some respects they even surpass their peers. This is Dr. Vernon Mendes discussing our past. As you know, we discussed the Dasaraja Dharma and how what our rulers were guided by. And we were on the two primary pillars of our rulers, if you remember, the Sasana, the spiritual upliftment, and the Loka. So from the, perhaps appropriate that we quote Dr. Vernon Mendes, one of our diplomats, a little bit about Sri Lanka's international relations in the past. You discuss relations with India and China in your book. Word, if you...
Yeah, China, now say, China is one of the leading nations of the past. And of course they were Buddhist at that time. So there were monks who were studying Buddhism in a very serious way. And remember, in the 4th century, a monk by the name of Fahian was studying Buddhism there, and he couldn't find true texts. So therefore he thought perhaps these two books may be available in Sri Lanka. Because we were at that time famous as a nation of scholars and the learned and libraries of knowledge. So he, came all the way. I think he spent about 2 years walking along the Silk Route and came to Sri Lanka, went to Anuradhapura, went to Abhayagiri, and in the library he found those two rare books. So we are very proud that we had the books and the Chinese knew we would have it. There are two things. Our name, that Sri Lanka was known as a depository of knowledge, that we had the books. So he spent 2 years at Abhayagiri temple, copied word by word, I think with the help of maybe the kind of candlelight sort of thing, because we didn't have electricity at that time. And then he took it back. Again under odds, she was about to sink, and they said, throw all these. He said, nothing doing, you can throw me, but not the books. So
but even now they maintain, don't they? Even now the universities, most universities in China still maintain departments of Sinhalese.
They teach Sinhala there, and there are a lot of Chinese, and they have a radio station, complete Sinhala radio station there. So we had links with China like that, and our nuns were from here taken to China. So we had very close links with China, one of the great nations of that time. Of course, then of course with India we...
Yes, I was just going to come to India, sir. You actually describe India in two senses. You speak of the advent of Buddhism to Sri Lanka, and then you speak of it as almost a diplomatic mission of the mighty Emperor Asoka, of the Mayuryan dynasty, who sent the emissaries with Buddhism. But maybe a few words of that link with Sri Lanka and India.
Because the two kings, Tis of our country and Dharmashoka, were kind of, they have never met, but they were very close. And then I think both for political and religious reasons, the king wanted to spread Buddhism. Having won the war, he's recorded, Dharmashoka is recorded in history as the only king who gave up war after winning it. Normally when you win, you keep on going ahead. But he said, how much say, violence, death involved in this matter. So he was thoroughly disgusted about war. He gave up war, called Digvijay, gave up and became Buddhist. So now he wanted to spread Buddhism across Asia. Sent his own son and daughter to Sri Lanka, sent 2 other, Son and Uttaran, to Swarnabhumi, perhaps modern Thailand and...
Yes. We're going to come to that.
Yeah. So of course he sent his, the fact that he sent his own son and daughter to Sri Lanka means he has a special kind of soft corner for Sri Lanka.
Yeah, that's what I'd like to, I'm sure our viewers would appreciate a comment from you, sir. In recent times, we've had extensive relations with India and China, and there is a debate. There is always a debate as to which alliances we must make. Now, you've, having taught us and several others in university, you've then thereafter become an ambassador for the country, and you've actually served a tenure, a very successful tenure from what we hear, as Sri Lanka's emissary in Thailand. So you obviously grappled with this area of international relations now over the past few years of your life. What is your call on our links with India and China? How should we mold it more? If we should we mold it better? How can we take a lesson from our past in going into the future with these 2 big neighbors that we have, who are now the giants of Asia, and then obviously going to a good future?
Well, we need both. For the long, from the very ancient times, we have had connection with China as well as India, but more with India because it's our closest neighbor, whereas China is far away. But because whatever we inherited, a large segment of our culture has roots in India. Not only Buddhism, in whatever art and architecture or painting, we go back to India. Of course, we took it from India and evolved in our own way. You take the stupa. It's not exact the replica of Sanch or Barud. We got the idea, but we built it on our way. We did everything of that kind. It's not Indian culture, Indian culture with a Sinhala face sort of thing. We got Buddhism, give a Sinhala face to Buddhism also. So ultimately,
we made it our own.
Our own. So therefore, but with China is a little distant in that sense, although we had, being a Buddhist country and Asian country, we had links, but then I think we are closer to India. And being next to India, almost some at one time thought that we should have become part of India, So, but both nations are now on the rise. So
then, sir, in our past, you also speak of our relations with Burma and Thailand. A quick word.
Again, they are all Buddhist countries. So we always had Buddhist kings, and we had very, very good relations. In fact, some of the we have monks of our country belong to 3 sects called Siamese sect, then Amarapura and Ramanya. Now, Siam means Thailand. So monks from Thailand came here to re-establish higher ordination, and once it was done here, those monks called themselves monks of the Siamese sect, Dissanayaka, under royal patronage. Then we had a second Nikaya with links with Burma, called Amarapura. Amarapura is another part of Burma, and also Ramanya, another part of Burma. So we have, of the 3 Buddhist sects we have, 1 with Thailand, 2 with Myanmar. So we have, and when they also came here, I'm sure there's a nice painting at Kalaniya of Burmese monks coming to Sri Lanka for high ordination.
Yes.
Not only that,
the time period you're talking of, sir, is around 1055 to 1110.
Yes. So then they got themselves ordained here, and they took it to Myanmar, and they call it Kalyanisima. So from Kalaniya they got higher ordination. So they still keep the word Kalyanisima in Burma. So we have had very close with Siam and Burma.
With talking of Siam now, you speak in your book, the book that you... So a quick word, what made you write a book and take it to Thailand when you were ambassador?
Because I thought the best souvenir I can take to another kingdom